Some emotions don't ask for answers, and most of the time, you don't even realize you're trying to give them one. Not loudly, not urgently, just quietly enough to remain. There was no moment where I decided to stop explaining them. No clear reason, no single event that demanded understanding. It was smaller than that. It was consistent. It was quiet. It was subtle. From the outside, nothing seemed unusual. I spoke when I needed to. I answered when someone asked. I smiled when it made sense. Nothing about me looked uncertain, and yet there were emotions that didn't require explanation. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just quietly enough to exist. I noticed it in the spaces between reactions. The second where I tried to define what I felt. The pause where I searched for clarity. The moment where something stirred, and I instinctively tried to translate it. Those moments didn't feel heavy, not painful, not urgent, just present. I was still engaged, still responsive, but I was aware of something beyond words. Emotions came and went, but not all of them needed interpretation. Some stayed undefined, some stayed without reason, some stayed without conclusion. I could move through an entire day and still feel something that didn't ask to be solved. Nothing felt wrong. Nothing felt urgent. It was more like a quiet presence, as if I had been expecting answers from something that never asked a question. Everything around me stayed the same, but the way I related to myself had shifted. I paid attention to how normal I still looked. I nodded at the right moments. I laughed when it was expected. I asked the kinds of questions people like to hear. If someone had asked how I felt, I would have answered without hesitation, and the answer would have sounded real. That was the strange part, because inside, something didn't require explanation, but I kept trying to explain it anyway. It wasn't fear. It wasn't sadness. It was something quieter, a feeling that some emotions do not ask for answers, not because they are confusing, but because they are complete as they are. I tried to treat it like nothing. I kept moving, kept talking, kept letting conversations unfold, but the emotion stayed. I noticed it in repetition. The same people, the same settings, the same familiar exchanges. Everything recognizable, yet slightly deeper. Not empty, not distant, just unexamined. As if I was present in the room, but carrying something that didn't need translation. I didn't fight it. I didn't force clarity. I only noticed that I was still searching. And that awareness changed something. Because once you realize something doesn't require an answer, you begin to loosen your grip on it. Everything continued as usual. Time moved forward. People spoke. The world kept its rhythm. And I moved within it, aware that something inside me was simply there. I noticed it in my own responses, not in what I said, but in what I tried to justify afterward. I could leave a conversation and realize later that I had been trying to explain a feeling that never needed explaining, like my mind was building structure around something already whole. I noticed it when I looked back on my own day. The schedule made sense. The tasks were ordinary. The conversations were familiar. But I felt slightly aware that something inside me was not asking to be resolved, not heavy, just present. As if I had learned that understanding is not always required for something to be real. Even simple emotions felt different. What to analyze, what to clarify, what to let be. None of it felt dramatic. It just felt unnecessary. I had to choose when to stop interpreting instead of continuing to search. And that awareness was new. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a revelation. It was quiet. And because it was quiet, it was easy to miss. But it kept returning in the same calm way. at the same moments, as if it was reminding me that not every feeling is a puzzle to solve. I started to notice how often I expected emotional clarity, a clear explanation, a clear reason, a clear conclusion. When it didn't arrive, I didn't panic. I just sat with it. And that quiet allowance changed the texture of everything. Not the events, not the people, just the way I moved through them, and the way I understood myself afterward. I didn't explain it to anyone. There was nothing to explain, but I carried those unexamined emotions with me, quietly, through the same rooms and the same hours, aware that they did not require definition. There was nothing to fix, no obvious problem to solve, no clear reason to search for. The emotion didn't feel urgent. It didn't demand interpretation. It simply existed alongside everything else. It moved with me in small ways, in the pauses between tasks, in the silence after conversations ended, in the quiet moments before sleep. I let the days continue without trying to decode it. I didn't force myself to understand it. I didn't try to justify it. I didn't try to simplify it. I let it sit there, quietly, as something that did not need an answer. Sometimes I forgot it was there, and then I would notice it again. Not as confusion, not as tension, but as a presence. The strange thing was how normal everything still looked. People still spoke the same way. My routine still held together. My life still moved forward. Nothing outside of me suggested that anything was unresolved, and yet something inside me remained quietly whole, as if a part of my heart understood something without needing to explain it. Not a solution, not a conclusion, just a state that did not require language. The emotion didn't grow stronger, it didn't fade either. It stayed subtle, almost easy to overlook if I chose not to analyze it. And maybe that was the point. Not every emotion asks for answers. Some feelings exist not because they are confusing, but because they are complete. They don't demand explanation. They don't demand understanding. They simply are. Not loudly, not urgently, just steadily. Nothing around me needed to change. Nothing needed to be justified or broken down into meaning. I didn't need to understand everything to know it was real. I simply continued, aware that there were emotions inside me that did not ask to be solved. And the more I stopped searching for explanations, the lighter the silence between my thoughts became. Not empty, not distant, just undisturbed, as if something inside me had finally stopped asking questions that never needed answers. Some emotions don't ask for answers, and I stopped trying to give them one.